How's it going? My name is Ryan, and this is TRC episode 35. On today's episode, we are going to be taking a late but first look of Uldir. We have been gone for a few weeks. We started back last week, so this week we are going to be jumping right back into the swing of things with our opinions on the current raid. For further ado, tanks, let's hit that ready button. Let's hit that countdown, and let's get the show rolling.
The heroes have made it to the glorious finale.
Alright, here we go, guys. Set up your chairs, focus up, let's do this.
Alright guys, get buffed up.
Okay, so we want to soak the annihilations,
Get your shit together.
then we want to target the annihilator,
Put the big girl panties on.
move back to avoid damage from eradication,
I think I've disconnected.
then we target decimator,
Can we pull already?
then we target boss.
I hope you can swim in molten lava.
Let's kill this dragon.
Welcome back, Raiders. As I've already stated, my name is Ryan, and you are listening to the Raiders Confessional podcast, where we talk all things in-game, PvE-wise, in the world of Azeroth. Joining me today, as always, from the land in Denmark is one Martin Larson, and the land of Canada is Oreo. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? Not like swell, not bad, just pretty good?
Just swell.
All right. I figured you would be swell. Oreo is a different matter, but you know. You're Mr. Hoity-toity in Denmark, so I figured you'd be pretty swell.
I am pretty swell.
So as I can see from Oreo, it looks like weather is cooling down there for him as well as it is for me here in the good old Midwest of the US of A. What about you? Is it getting colder there yet?
Oh yes, it is. I'm when I bike to work in the morning. I have to wear gloves now. It's really it's fine during the day. It's just in the morning, and when it gets dark, it's cold. Ugh.
Now, Oreo, you've already had snow, haven't you?
Yeah, we already got snow on the ground.
Oh, wow.
We had snow about a week ago. It's just been snowing all week, so yeah, welcome to Canada.
It's a big old
quite
nope
happy.
for me.
Yeah, I'm quite happy it doesn't snow in Denmark in September. Please.
So, yeah, it has been cooling down in most of the world, in the northern hemisphere. I'm sure for you in the southern hemisphere, it's probably warming up. But, yeah, so other than real life, what have you guys been up to in game? Marty, I guess I'll start with you. I think you have some news to announce, if I'm not mistaken.
The stuff happened today. Well, it's. I think I sort of hinted at it a little bit last show, and I talked a little bit around it last show. But I actually told my guildmaster and our guild today that I quit raiding, at least when it comes to Mythic raiding. I decided to step away from Mythic raiding because I just don't feel I just don't feel it at the moment. And I think I haven't really felt it for a while. I think it started already in the ending of Legion, and I hoped that a new expansion would change it, but it didn't. I mean, it's not because the raid is bad or anything, and you'll hear about it later on when we jump into that conversation. I just don't feel it at the moment.
Sure.
I find other things more fun to do, like pet battle. And that
The jokes just keep coming.
Sure, that counts as PvE, right?
yeah, sure.
Nothing against those of you that like pet battling, but we will not be talking pet battling on this show.
That's about to change now. Wait,
No, we will absolutely hear before we get rolling. Do a bit more of an in-depth talk on why you are feeling that way and why it's okay to feel that way right now. But before we do that, Oreo, you actually just threw you an invite to our guild on a DK. Other than just playing an alt, what have you been up to in game?
Well, we got 7 out of 8 now this week. So we've been pushing Gahoon now for a solid night of progress. I think we got the fight pretty down pat now, so.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And I think from here, it's just kind of cleaning up some things, maybe tweaking our strategy a little bit just to facilitate the kill. But yeah, no, for those of you listening that are in the guild, you know, we'll get there. I was a guest today on the Blue Recluse with Marty and Michael as Tom was out of town. For those of you who don't know, Blue Recluse is a show that talks all of Blizzard's products. So they had me on over there because I have some experience doing a podcast about all things Blizzard. So I jumped on over there. We had some fun, and we certainly talked about today. Certain guilds, sometimes it's more prevalent for you and your group to utilize a strategy that works for you and maybe not necessarily stick to a strategy that you're seeing on a kill video or a guide. Those strategies and those guides were made with certain raid compositions more often than not. And so that may not necessarily work for your group. And so it is okay to deviate from strategies to find a way that does work best for you and your group. But for our group, we will certainly do the same. We'll continue to bang our heads against the wall and then try and figure out a strategy that works for us, and hopefully we'll get there sooner than later. But yeah, so really not much else to say for myself other than I too have been slowly leveling a DK when I'm finding some few and far between time when my monk doesn't have anything to do that he needs to for the week. It's been slow and steady, but I think Marty, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I don't know what it was in relation to now, but
Fair enough.
No, I mean, one thing that was a little bit of a shame was that I sort of when we did, I hoped that we would have killed Cahoon and Heroic this week, because I sort of had the idea that this was the week that I was going to quit, and we had like a 4% wipe or something like that, very close to that, and I was like, oh, that it's such a shame that that we didn't, that I wanted to finish with that kill, that could have been like great, but sadly we had to, yeah, we have to wait for next week for getting that heroic Cahoon kill.
Well, now will you continue to join them until they get the kill, or probably not?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, no, I don't think so. I think I said my goodbyes right now. Well, not goodbyes, just like I'm going on a hiatus right now, and I need to figure out what I want to do going forward, because I still want to raid. In my for now, I'll just stay in my guild, and I'll join the social rage. We're starting that up now. Now that we pretty much got it on clear, all the bosses on clear, and on almost on heroic as well now. So we'll start doing social raids on Sunday nights. So if Friday or Sunday, it varies a little bit. So I'll probably join in on those and then just have some fun. Then, but what I want to do going forward, I don't really know yet. I still want to raid. I still want to experience that content, and I want to do it not in LFR, if possible.
You don't want to do LFR for all of it.
No. I mean, just to experience the story, I might just jump into LFR, but I would like to go into at least normal, and just experience how the fights are meant to be.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel you there, and I guess this is probably a perfect opportunity for us to talk about early expansion burnout and the likes, because this is probably something all guilds have dealt with. I know Oreo, myself, and our respective guild, we've had a few players who they've thrown various reasons at us, but it all usually boils down to one thing. For whatever reason in their life, the game is just too much, and they've just had to kind of step away or find a group that better fits their needs, as we are indeed a guild striving for Mythic. But Marty, you presented the question to me today on the Blue Recluse on how, as a guild leader, I feel about players coming to me with this type of situation. And, my answer over there stays the same over here. And it is that I would rather a player come and tell me, hey, feeling burned out, I'm just not happy, I don't really know what I want to do. I think it's probably better for me to take a step back and go do something else somewhere else, or just not play altogether, or whatever, than continue to try and bang their head and be present unwillingly each and every single week. Because I think, in my mind, that breeds a situation or an environment where somebody isn't happy and they may not be putting their best foot forward, whether they realize it or not. And I am of the opinion that everybody pays their $15 respectively for their own reasons. And if you don't feel like you're getting your $15 worth, best of luck to you, more power to you. I 100% respect your decision, and I'm completely okay with it. We'll find some other bodies to fill the spot, and hopefully you can find what you're looking for. And if later on down the road you change your mind, you want to come back, by all means, hit us up, and we'll see what we can work out. But I certainly wouldn't want to force someone to stick around, because I don't think that that's good for anybody involved in the situation.
No, and I mean, I could even see it towards the end of Legion, that expansion, where I could just see my healing numbers just slowly declining because I did not put as much effort into it anymore, and I did not do as much research anymore because I was just, starting to get bored, and I basically wanted to do something else than raiding. So I didn't have, I was not in the right headspace. So that also meant that, obviously numbers would then go down, and then you're not performing, and then you're basically letting the team down. Uh, how, how harsh it even might sound, but that's the truth.
Yeah, no. So I think the moral of the story, and I hope everyone present or those of you listening would not only understand but agree that you each and every single person should play the game for their own benefit and their own happiness. And if you aren't finding those things, then it's okay to want to make a change or step back. So if you don't agree, I'm sorry you feel that way. I politely don't agree with you. And if you are in
Agree
that,
to disagree.
right, and if you are in the boat where you are feeling that way, I absolutely respect the players that have the gumption to respectfully have that conversation with those in charge and let everybody know, versus just disappearing, because that's the negative side of things. At least do the respectful thing and send a whisper or an in-game mail, whatever. Just give somebody a form of heads up, like, hey, this is what's going on. I know this isn't ideal, but I'm going to take a step back.
And just like with everything in life, it's very stupid to burn your bridges because you
Sure.
never know. I mean, it's not because of the people in the guild. It's not because how it's run. It has nothing to do with the guild. Why I'm stopping raiding right now. It's just I just don't feel it at the moment. But who knows? 6 months from now, or next patch, or whatever, when those lush elemental changes comes in, maybe I feel great again and want to get back in there. Who knows? And then it would have been stupid to burn that bridge because it's some cool guys in there, and I still want to hang out with them when if I feel like it. So yeah, don't burn the bridges if it's not necessary to do so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I think we've said all we can say on this subject matter. If you don't agree, you're wrong and you're stupid and idiots. But yeah, no. But yeah. So, anyways, if you guys have anything you want to weigh in on this particular subject matter, feel free to get a hold of us. As always, our contact information will be listed in the description down below, whether it's on YouTube or your podcatcher of choice. But let us know what you think. Other than that, I say we jump right into talking about Uldir, since we are a couple of weeks late on this episode. What do you guys say?
Let's do it.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, as per normal, I present the question and the option to you, the listener. Our typical format going forward with each tier that has been released since Legion and TRC started its show. We do a first look episode with those of us here on the show. Sometimes we have a guest on. And then we roll right into the role specific episodes where we look at the raid from the point of view from a tank, from a healer, from a range DPS, from a melee DPS. And those are typically our 5 episodes that are entirely centric to whatever tier of raid is out at a given time. We've seen mild success with those shows. We haven't heard any negative feedback with it, but I continue to present the question to those of you that are listening or watching. If you like the way we're doing it, let us know. If you don't like it, would like to see us do something differently, please let us know. We are always open to feedback and changing up things how we do it so that you guys can find something useful out of the content we put out there for you guys. So with that being said, last disclaimer, which we always make with these particular episodes, we are not experts. We are not theory guide writers. We are not, the owners of class resource discords or any of that sort. We are just three guys that happen to enjoy raiding. Marty's now more on the casual side of things. Oreo and myself will continue forward with the Mythic side of things. So a lot of these things are primarily opinion based. We do base a lot of our opinion on research, going through plenty of resources, but please do not hold the flame to us as we, that we would be experts, because we are not. We are just three big dumb idiots who enjoy playing this game way too much. So let's jump right into it. Oreo, I guess I'll start from you on my screen, left to right here. What was your initial thoughts? What are your thoughts now? What's your general feel and opinion of Uldir as a raid, especially as a first tier raid in an expansion?
I like it so far. I feel we look back at first raids of different expansions. I guess the freshest one being Legion, and that was with Emerald Nightmare being pretty much a cakewalk. And I feel like that's not really that's not true for this one. We saw a lot of guilds actually, even guilds like Method and whatnot in that first week struggle to even get Heroic Gahoon down in their split runs. So that goes to show that Blizzard's not messing around anymore. It's no longer a gimme tier, considering the fact that now that they've gotten rid of tier sets, gearing going forward will be the exact same. So, I mean, I like it so far. I think that maybe there's a few tweaks here and there that they could look at as far as what certain mechanics do during fights. I guess the biggest headache for us was always Zool having. I could see it being an issue for an alliance guild because you have so many dispels that you need. So you're basically going to have to bring mages. You're going to have to bring priests. You're going to have to bring shamans, and two of those specs have poor simming DPS right now. So why would you want to bring those two? I guess for us it's easy because we're on the horde side using blood elves. Basically, if you get your fear, you get your debuff, you run out and you dispel yourself with your arcane torrent, and that makes the fight so much more streamlined for us.
Horde bias.
Yeah, that's it's very hard to say that there isn't when you have a racial that does that. We looked at it last expansion with the rocket boots for Goblin, or the rocket jump for Goblin being a necessary thing in order to kill Mythic kill Jaden. Now I look at things like Zool on the Horde side. It makes it very trivial to do a fight like that, and I can't think of a Alliance side racial that would have the same effect, really.
You might be great at raiding with all your traits, but at least we do less rep grinding.
Yes, right, the 10% rep grind. Yes. That'll definitely make up for the fact that you'll be grinding Zool for weeks on end trying to get him down.
Which
I guess the other. Oh, go ahead.
I said this rings a lot of similarity to Cthulhu in the original Naxxramas, with Poison Cleansing Totem, for Horde, making that fight very doable, where the Alliance, their paladins, just couldn't keep up, and it was almost impossible for Alliance to do Cthulhu.
At least the paladins had something to do.
Yes, they gave him something to do other than buff people. I guess the other thing going and looking at this is the bring the class, not player. Unfortunately, Blizzard still hasn't solved that for a lot of these fights. Again, I guess I'll use Zool as a baseline for that. You look at the Mythic kills. If you're not stacking Frost Mages and Sub Rogues, like, you're just not gonna have a good time on that fight. And unfortunately, for the more casual or more laid back, not world first or US or EU top 100 guilds, it sucks for them, because I know we only have 2 rogues. Do I start recruiting 5 rogues for one fight, or do we re-roll people for rogues and mages for a fight? Like, I still don't believe that you should have something so tuned to that.
Which I don't think Blizzard ever designs fights with the intent of being a fight that people will need to bring 6 rogues to, or 7 warriors, or whatever the case may be, right? But it is unfortunate to see that situation arise, and then really no tweaks happen to try and alleviate that situation early, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like there could have been something done in on those fights. We also look at Gahun. There are people that are able to solo lanes to drop orbs, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's classes that they can't do that. Like we have 2 shamans running orbs on our first one because Ghost Wolf helps them out as much as it can. But you look at classes like monks, warlocks to a certain extent can also do very well at running orbs. Warriors can solo it. Demon hunters can solo it. All the high mobility classes, those are the ones that you're gonna want to bring for that fight to make it so much easier.
But I mean, isn't that also just the name of the game? Because I mean, sure that there needs to be probably a little bit better balance than there is right now. But I mean, there was, what was it? The council fight in Taurus with the 4 Shiraras or whatever they're called.
Oh, sisters.
Yeah, the
Sisters.
sisters.
Yeah, the
I
sisters.
mean, I mean, that fight became
Coven.
so much easier if you only brought in, range classes to deal with it, and had like very minimal melee classes. That's how we did it. We basically benched all the melees that didn't need to be there because one of them leads our raid leader, so obviously he needed to be there, and obviously there's the tanks that needed to be there. But the rest we just stacked up ranged classes and then we got a kill within 4 tries or something like that. And that's just the nature of that specific fight, I guess.
Yeah, but I'm seeing this becoming a repetitive thing for a lot of the fights that we're doing, that
Mm.
bringing too much melee as well is a very huge detriment. We're looking at Gahun having so many melee in that range that when he does his little corruption explosion, we're
Mm.
getting multiple stacks on people because there's just nowhere for them to go and still be able
Yeah.
to do their deal. Or looking at Mithrax when the orbs drop, and suddenly we have 2 or 3 people in one orb. Like, I know that there's only so much room for these people to go, especially when orbs start dropping around the boss, that it's not very forgiving for them.
I know we've had points throughout the history or lifespan of WoW, so to speak, that Blizzard has felt like there's been so much homogenization within the game between the classes. You know, every class would have their mobility spell. Every class would have their immunity spells or their defensives or whatever. That they've kind of lately tried to steer away from that to bring some uniqueness back to the classes. But I think it would be prudent for Blizzard to remind themselves or remember, if they haven't been, that anytime you design a fight, inherently, based on class differences, there will be classes from just purely from a utility perspective, what mobility or defensive they have. They are going to be better suited for a fight than others, or even just based on the nature of how they do damage. And that difference could exist within melee or could exist within range. There could be a situation where hunters are just going to be better out of any other range because they have physical DPS. Or warlocks, shadow priests, and boomkins because they are dot based classes. And it's just like I look back to Mythic Argus, and Oreo's going to laugh because there might be a little bit of bias here, but 9 times out of 10 in the groups I was in trying to get my Mythic Argus kill, I'd be doing top 5 damage. And then I'd be running orbs in phase 2 because, for one, I could Ghost Wolf in my Elemental Shaman and do orbs easily. And plus I didn't have the immunity that a lot of the other classes had to stay alive phase 2, so it worked out great, but I still got sad because there was just that idea, oh, he's an Elemental Shaman. Well, leave your demon hunters up, let them do damage, I'll run orbs. I'll get us to phase 2 quicker than other classes will be because I can do more damage. I just, whatever. But you're always going to have these situations, no matter how you design the game, where classes are going to be better suited for certain things. But I do think Blizzard could absolutely be doing a better job at marginalizing things to a point where it's really trivial if you do bring the the best raid comp versus the not best raid comp, you know?
Yep.
But I do think
Yeah.
you should never have a situation where if all your buddies want to play Arms Warriors, you run in a 1 tank, 1 healer, and 9 Arms Warriors. You know what I mean? Like, that's just stupid.
I was about to say that the perfect comp is 18 shamans and 2 tanks, right?
Yeah.
At
I
the
think what
moment.
they should do, we have what, 12 classes you can pick from in the game right now, or is it 13?
13, pretty sure.
13.
Yeah.
So the smallest raid size should
Great
be
size.
13, and you should get a raid buff for having one of every class
If you
present.
bring one of these,
Yep.
oh, that would be amazing.
Be like
I
a raid.
remember. Oh, what was it? Was it? Oh, that was back in Vanilla thing where we did class runs to Upper Blackrock Spire, where you only brought one of each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a great mechanic. I think, you know, it should be a damage buff or a damage reducer buff or whatever, or damage and healing buff that you literally, if you don't have it, it makes doing the raids even, 6 months into a tier incredibly hard to do if you don't have that buff. I think they should do that to force people to bring one of every class all the time.
Now, speaking of buffs to classes going into Uldir, with the way that the reorigination array buff works in there, I find that that's actually a very interesting way of I guess nerfing the raid, but not touching it at all in a certain way. For those of
Yeah.
you who don't know what it is for every 3 bosses on a weekly quest, every 3 bosses in Uldir that you kill, your Uldir Azerite gear gives you more of a secondary stat. So depending on what you're stacking, you could have more mastery, more haste, more crit, more versatility. Um, and I like that idea because you're always getting more powerful through raiding no matter what, and it's also nerfing it so the guilds like ourselves who are not cutting edge world first style, we can still get through it. We're not maybe the best players like what we see in Method and Limit and all of those guilds, but at least having the buff helps us make up for that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty cool system, actually. Small little change. I hope we'll see it going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just kind of pausing there for a second because I had never actually thought about it in that regard, but you were absolutely right. That was a great way of providing a mechanic that allows players to have things be easier the further on they go without actually changing the tuning of the raid like we've seen in the past. Maybe this will mean that we won't see any of these nerfs towards the end of a tier to allow people to get their last minute kill
They'll
before we
probably
go.
still do stuff like that. Like we saw it with Argus coming down the end, where they just said, you know what? We don't really care anymore, so we're gonna nerf his health by 5%. We're gonna do this. We're gonna nerf this by 10%. All this stuff. So you'll still probably see things where, if something is truly supposed to be the bleeding edge, we'll see probably nerfs so that everybody can at least enjoy it or get a shot at it, right?
Just summon in those paladins who can one shot them, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy. What is his name? Rex Troy?
I don't
Sorry?
remember.
Rex Troy, the prop paladin, the guy who's been bug testing for Blizzard for the last couple weeks or rating, finding all the broken shit.
Yeah, I just saw a video where he got summoned in, and then he hit the bus once, and you just see the health go down, and it's that one shot it.
Yeah,
Uh,
his Vectus thing.
yeah.
Actually, he released another video where they have 20 prop paladins take down Mythic Taylock.
That's
And
amazing.
it breaks the fight because only non-tank players get that circle debuff. What's it called? Hardened Arteries.
Yeah.
So basically, it makes it so easy. So if you were to stack tank classes that could do decent damage, you could easily do that raid.
So stupid.
That's
an easy
not,
fix. You just make it so the top 2 players on the threat meters,
yeah, or just 2 tank players. Period. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
who or what,
That's
right?
true.
But I just found that very funny that here we are going into what's supposed to be already tested raids, and we're still seeing things like this. Right?
I
It
don't
makes
mean
it
that.
so. Oh, go ahead.
But also, as Ryan said, there's like 13 classes now with 3 specs each, pretty much in average at least. Uh, there's so many combinations of things going on. I mean, it's understandable that they can't test everything. Granted, maybe they should think about, hey, this is only going on tanks. What if people only bring tanks? Uh, but then again, why would you only bring tanks? I mean,
But the nature of that fight is it's supposed to be a very easy entry into a mythic
yeah.
rating. Like, I don't think we've ever seen a first boss in Mythic, at least within the last expansion or so, that has been so overwhelmingly hard that it's on par with the rest of them. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, nothing comes to mind right away either. But yeah, so I guess that's how Oreo feels about Uldir. Marty, I know that you stepped back, but with your brief stint in there from a progressional standpoint, I guess what
Yeah.
is your opinion of Uldir so far?
I really enjoyed the raid instance so far. I think it's a good start. It has a good increase of difficulty. I think it's a really good starter raid so far, and it's some fun fights in there as well. It. I mean, towards the end of the instance, there might be a lot of trash, especially around Soul. But I mean, besides that, I quite enjoyed it. I think it's pretty cool. I'm always a little bit worried when you go into and it's like a troll raid instance, because I don't know. For me, it just feels like when it's something troll related, then the difficulty always seems a little bit higher, or they have like wacky, weird shit like the bridge in Throne of Thunder and stuff like that. And no, I think this time around it felt good. Felt like a good instance, and I really enjoyed it so far. That's how quickly I could get through it, Oreo. No need to drag it out.
I mean, I could pick a bone about this raid all day.
but overall, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I haven't tried it on Mythic, but on normal and heroic, I've had a really great time so far.
I will say this though: if you are in a heroic guild who is struggling to get, Mithrax or Gehun down, just go in and kill Mythic Talok. Like, it took
Yeah,
us half an hour to figure out absolutely everything and get everybody on the same page, and it's a pushover by the time you figure it out.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been on Gahun in 2 weeks, and on those 2 weeks, we also did the Mythic Talok, just because extra gear, it helps. So yeah.
Yeah, and if you wait long enough, your Azeroth armor, if you've been lucky enough to get a piece, will be high enough that you'll just be like that prop hound and one shot everything.
That 370 chest piece I got, it's lush.
Yeah, we won't even dive down the stupid BFA legendary discussion that is Azerite armor and the
Well,
woes of acquisition.
I don't want to go into that discussion either, but I just want to say this, and I would never think that I would ever have to say this, but I actually like the legendary system now that we had in Legion so much more.
Yeah, I agree, but at the same time, I like the legendary system we had at the very end with the whole pre-patch and everything, where you could literally pick and choose what one you
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah.
If that was the way it was from the start, that would have been just so much better, in my opinion.
That was always my opinion. Blizzard, if you don't like the fact that people don't want to use all the legendaries you've created, you shouldn't have made shitty legendaries.
There you have it.
As for myself personally, I like this raid. When we coming off the likes of Legion, Emerald Nightmare was way undertuned. TOV was way overtuned. I think from a tuning perspective, they've hit the mark with Uldir, or as Marty says, oh dear. And I would say, coming off of that comment, for those of you that may be out there that were in a Mythic guild that were able to kill, get over the progressional wall. Like Cronus was or whatever the hell that guy's name was in Nighthold. If you're able,
Process.
yeah, Croesus, there you go. If you're able to get over whatever wall kind of separates guilds from that probably shouldn't be in Mythic versus guilds that can actually be a Mythic guild, great. You were probably having a relatively easy time towards the end of Legion being a Mythic guild. But now a lot of those guilds, our guild included, are having a hard time on a heroic boss. That's how things should be. Things shouldn't just be a hand me until you get into the last couple of bosses on the Mythic raid. You know what I mean? Like you should have to fight and claw your way up through the ranks and ladders. Not everybody can be a Mythic race guild where you can sit down for 3 days straight and do 600 consecutive pulls inside of a couple of days of raiding. It took us, me and Oreo, to get to this, hundreds of pulls on Argus mark over the course of 6-7 weeks because we only raided a couple hours at a time, twice a week. So things shouldn't just be a hand me, and that's okay.
Yeah, on that note, buddy of Ryan and ours, Vidal, his guild did Argus for 2 months straight, raiding 5 days a week before they finally got it down. They were
5
able
days a
to,
week.
Yep.
yeah,
They
were
would
down
share the
to,
lockout
like,
over the course of 3 different raid teams, and they just keep going at it.
Okay.
yeah,
I mean, it sort of reminds me of Wrath of the Lich King because we had a social casual guild back then where we didn't go. I don't even know if there were heroic modes and stuff like that back then, but we just went in 10-man most likely, I think, and I think we spent at least 1 month, maybe 1.5 month on the Lich King alone, just to try and get him down. But I mean, I feel like that's fine if that's the difficulty that your guild can handle. It's fine that it's not just a pushover and you just go in, because it's not fun either to just go in the first night and clear everything. I reckon. Well, I mean that's pretty much what we did with normal Uldir, but we are Mythic guilds. I mean, it sort of makes sense that we can do that, right? So
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, I guess. Are there any things about the raid? I mean, I think we're all kind of in a consensus here that we like the raid. We think the tuning is great. I happen to like the diversity amongst the mechanics inside of each encounter. I think they're varied up enough that it kind of divvy. Go ahead.
I really like that there's not too many soak mechanics.
actually, I agree with it too. I don't think that it's so much that there's not so mechanics. It's just that they vary in what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, no, that's nice because it divvies up where the responsibilities lie. If you had a rogue in Tomb, they were going to do the mechanics on every single fight, and everybody else could just stand there and DPS for the most part, which was retarded and dumb. And yeah, but no, I like the diversity of raid encounters. I think the tuning is great. Aesthetically, it's kind of a cool raid. It's not boring to look at. It's no Star Augur, right? But it's super cool. One of my biggest complaints is the trash. Like Marty said, I think the trash could be cut back, not only on Zul's platform but also around the ring. It's just
Zul platform is so bad, especially if you accidentally pull like half of the platform and your FPS just drops to 0.
And your raid members starting getting thrown off the platform and stuff like that.
Well, you want to know how you can figure out really quickly if your players have yet to figure out whether or not they should ever be in front of the tanks? Go do Zul's platform. Like it never ceases to amaze me. Myself and the other tank will run forward to go pull mobs, and you have players that are up in front of us. Like, oh, I don't know how stuff got pulled. I can tell you exactly how stuff got pulled. Just be patient. We'll bring it to you.
3 Sunders, guys. 3 Sunders.
Yeah, I don't think we haven't had a week yet where we haven't had at least one. Everybody die. Let's reset and get back in here.
Complete shit show on the platform.
Yeah. Yeah. So
no, I think my main complaints about the raid is probably more on the lore side of things. If you are an alliance player,
Yeah, I was
that's
gonna
that's
say.
very specific, but real nevertheless. Because when we went in there, I mean, as an alliance player, you have no clue why we're actually there. Uh, we have no, we don't know any of the bosses. We don't know anything. We're basically just there, and that felt a little bit weird. I actually uh, had to go look up videos and to get the story told of what the hell is going on in there and things like that. And this weekend I actually played through most of the storyline and my horde character, and then now everything makes sense and why we have to deal with this. And I think uh, that's a little bit weird. They should have, I don't know, they should have done something to at least like explain why we need to go kill Gahoon. I mean, it makes sense when you level through on the horde side, because that's basically everything you do in all the zone is related to this. So yeah, so I thought that was a little bit odd that they didn't do anything to at least tell the story in like just here's the quick rundown why we're going there. We don't even get that. So yeah, I think that's the largest complaint I have.
Yeah, and I agree with it too, because you think about the horde side, when you're running through Nazmir, you're dealing with the blood trolls, you're dealing with Gahoon, comes up a lot, you're dealing with Taylok at the end because he's kind of like the big dude standing on top of the pyramid. Like you go through and you understand who Mithrax is from going through Vol'dun and all these
Mm,
different bosses. If you're Alliance, you just kind of walk in, you kind of stumble in and you just start killing stuff, I guess.
yeah,
Just because it's a raid, I guess. So
it gives loot. Let's go.
yeah,
That's probably my biggest gripe, other than trash, is the loot situation. And I know that likely extends outside of raids, but even within raids, I just personal loot. I know I was probably one of the biggest advocates for personal loot, primarily because I hate dealing with loot in guilds. But it is not netting the amount of upgrades that it should be right now and in amongst our group, and it's very frustrating. Um, when you're a class that only has one source of a weapon drop in a raid, and that weapon does not drop, and you're a tank or a physical DPS, you kind of need that weapon. That's a big deal. And when that's not dropping, screw you, Blizzard. Like, come on. I hate being the complainer, but they've got to fix the loot, man. It's just not okay where it is right now.
No, I heard weapons come up a lot as well among our melee DPS who just didn't get, even back when they just did Mythic Plus or Mythic for that Myth Dungeons for that matter. That weapons was really hard to come by, and people actually, because they needed to get into raiding, they had to go to the auction house and buy weapons to actually be able to compete in there.
Yeah, it took me until yesterday to finally get the both weapons I needed just to be able to switch to Windwalker when doing world quests or doing stuff out in the world.
Mm.
Because I got a 345 weapon week 2 when we started doing Mythic Zeros, or when I started doing Mythic Zeros. And ever since then I've yet to get an upgrade, and I'm hovering. It's probably my lowest piece right now, one of my lowest pieces right now, and I need to upgrade it, and I just cannot get it to drop anywhere. I ran just about every Mythic Plus that drops a two-hander this week, at least an 8 or above, and I can't get it to drop. I ran the bosses that drop it. Hopefully I maybe had a chance to get the normal one. I have yet to run normal this week, but it's just not dropping, and it's very frustrating especially when we're at a point in our progression where it's clearly we need to be doing more DPS or more, just obviously there are things that we as players can clean up mechanically speaking, but there is some gear aspect to it, and it would help make things easier. And when you can't get that to happen, it's frustrating. So I do think
Yeah.
they need to fix that.
Yeah, and I mean, just imagine if you're dual wielder, right?
Right.
Then it's
Yeah.
not just one weapon, then it's two weapons you need to get
See,
your
and
hands
I'm
on.
of the opinion, it once upon a time, you had a dual wielding situation where you wanted, your main hand to be slow and your offhand to be fast. You had these things where you wanted a difference between your main hand and your offhand as a dual wielder. I don't see that necessity anymore. And I really like the fact that your artifact weapon accounted for both weapons. I kind of would like to see if you're a dual wielding class and a one-hander drops, it accounts for both weapons.
But class fantasy, that makes no sense.
Well, then make things drop better, or give players a way to target loot more or whatever. Just whatever you're doing right now isn't working, in my opinion.
You look at classes like rogues, where even between just assassination or subtlety in combat, you need 2 daggers or 2 swords or 2 axes or 2 maces or something like that. Like at least a combination of 2 slow one-handed weapons, 2 daggers in order to swap specs around. Well, now you're looking at 4 bosses that you need loot off of, and we all know how loot works right now with personal loot, and you can't get those drops. It's just not. You have to be the luckiest person in the world to be able to get all 4 of those drops.
So I had a guild member who ran a Mythic 8 last week, got nothing out of his chest.
Nothing? Like no gear at all?
Nothing. Got artifact power and gold. What? What is that? Like, I mean, you've taken away Mythic Plus's being able to drop Azeroth gear, but then you don't even offer them a guarantee on their weekly cash. Like, that's crap.
That sounds like a bug.
That was kind of my reaction. I haven't done any more delving into it because the whole situation frustrates me to begin with. But
yeah, well, they've ran into issues with the caches for the last few weeks. I know that there's been issues with them dropping the wrong loot spec, just bugs like that.
Are they gonna fix it? I mean, my question, like, you owe these players something.
Yeah, well, I believe that they've worked to fix the bug, but once it's already happened, it's kind of hard for them to go back on it.
They are about to fix it. It will be coming out for BlizzCon, and it's called World of Warcraft Classic.
There you go. If you thought the grind wasn't real now, wait till you have to level to 60.
Yeah, we talked about World of Warcraft Classic today on the Blue Recluse, so there was a lot to be said there as well. Some interesting fan theories on Classic killing live. I'm shaking my head for those of you that are not seeing the video version.
I don't think it'll kill it, but it will definitely pull people to it. That's just the nature of the beast, right?
Yeah. But today's show, I know, isn't probably one of the longer episodes. We're rounding about. We're coming up on an hour. The final edit will probably just shy of an hour. But before we get out of here, did you guys have any last few tidbits you wanted to mention or talk about before we wrap up for the day?
Not really. I'm just hoping that I finally get Azeroth shoulders.
Best of luck to you.
Been walking around with the same shoulders for the last month, so.
Yeah, same here for my head and shoulders. My chest is the only thing that I've changed.
That sounds like my 325 ring.
How have you not gotten anything above a 325 ring?
I do, but the stats are wrong stats. So
because rings don't have primary stats on them. Yep. Good job on that one, Blizzard. Yeah, I have a few pieces like that too, where it's even outside of rings. I have a couple like bracers that are 370 compared to my 360 ones, and the bracer is like haste and just it's all the wrong stats. I'm like, I don't want to put that on, because it drops my other stats down. But I know agility is better. Well, how about you quit screwing me over here? But yeah, so. Or you got anything to add here? No? Okay.
Nope, all good.
This week's episode, like I said, sorry, it's going to be a little bit shorter than normal. Hopefully here, I will talk with the guys today after the show, and I will put out a Twitter announcement whether or not we are going to jump back into recording next week or skip a week before we start in a roll specific episodes. We'll just have to see, but I will let all of you listening know. So by the time you are hearing this, if you're not currently in the stream at the moment, there will be an announcement made that you should be able to find whether or not we will have a show next week or not. But have no fear, the role specific episodes are coming. I will be jumping on getting our guests lined up and all that jazz. And again, apologies for us being late. I do appreciate all of you being patient over the 2 weeks I was gone. But we are back. We are ready to go. We are actively rolling with the episodes. So thank you again. But that is going to do it for us this week. And we will talk to you most Sundays, 2:30 Central Standard Time, right here on Twitch or on your podcatcher of choice or our YouTube channel at a later date. That's going to be it for us, guys. We will talk to you in the next episode. See ya. You guys want to find Marty, you can find him over at the Blizzard podcast he does, where they talk all things Blizzard games, The Blue Recluse. If you want to find him on Twitter, you can find him at Unamathil. For me, guys, if you want to find me and personally, you can find me over on my Twitch and Twitter, which are both at Mega Irish Gaming, or you can find me on my All Things Blizzard podcast, which I do with my good friend Dusty Porter, the Blizzard Umbrella. If you want to find us here on the show, you can find us at our Twitter account, which is at _TRC podcast, or you can find us on our email, theraidersconfessional@gmail.com, no apostrophe on the S. That being said, guys, Dusty, take us out of here, my man. See ya.
Sorry, I died. Was I supposed to stand in the green puddles or the orange ones?
Hey, get together over there, bud.
This show has been hosted by Dragon Powered Studios, and the intro and outro has been brought to you by Thankful Cow Solutions.
Moo.